I'm game. I'm ready.
So it seems that, with the exception of Harriet Myers, there have been two qualifications that all of the recent nominees have had to have. They had to be a sitting judge of one of the courts of appeals and a graduate of Harvard or Yale. What do you think would be the reaction in the Senate and elsewhere of the kind of nominee that used to be seen in our history, people like Frankfurter or Justice Douglas, who would get away from this pattern of only sitting judges being eligible for appointment?
One prediction I make is, regardless of who wins this election, that tradition will be broken. I think it's a negative tradition. This court, the current Supreme Court, is the first court in history where all 9 justices are former federal appeals court judges. Justice O'Connor was the only non-federal appeals court judge, and now she's gone, replaced by Alito. The court that decided Brown v. Board of Education in 1954, not one of the justices, had been a judge of any kind on any court previously. Earl Warren was governor of California. Hugo Black was a senator. William Douglas was head of the SEC. Felix Frankfurter was a law professor. I think the court should definitely, the president should definitely get away with this tradition. I think, for example, if McCain wins, you're likely to see Senator Lindsey Graham or Senator John Cornyn of South Carolina or Texas appointed to the Supreme Court. I think if Barack Obama wins, you're likely to see Governor Deval Patrick of Massachusetts or Harold Koh, the dean of Yale Law School, appointed to the court. I think it is not a healthy thing to have just judges. You know, Joe Biden in confirmation hearings would often say to the the nominees, I just wish one of you guys had run for dog catcher once. And I think that's an excellent point. I believe in diversity, but I don't just believe in racial and religious and ethnic diversity. I believe in occupational diversity for the Supreme Court, and I think the court has really lost something by becoming, in effect, the top rung of the civil service ladder for judges.
Is there any particular justice that exerts a greater amount of influence behind the scenes in making a decision, and also, does Justice Thomas write very many decisions?
Well, Justice Thomas writes as many decisions as everyone else. He has a very distinctive style. He is very different from Justice Scalia. I think he is unfairly patronized by some people who don't follow the court as a sort of follower of Justice Scalia. I was at a synagogue where Justice Scalia was speaking, and he was asked to compare his judicial philosophy with Justice Thomas's, and Scalia said, look, he talked for a while, but then he said, look, I'm an originalist, I'm a textualist, but I'm not a nut. And I think, that underlines that Justice Thomas is well to the right of Justice Scalia. Thomas fundamentally, and he says this openly in cases, he doesn't believe in stare decisis the way the other judges do. He thinks that if a decision's wrong, it should be overturned. Now, going to the other part of your question about justices' influence on others, I think that is very much overstated. I think they are 9 strong-willed, highly opinionated people. Justice Brennan had the reputation of someone who could really sweet-talk his colleagues into voting with him, and I think even that reputation was overstated. These are 9 separate law firms that run, and under Chief Justice Rehnquist, he really didn't encourage too much lobbying, too much connections among the justices. He just wanted to get the decisions done and out, and everybody voted, and I think there is not a lot of influence that is wielded by any justice over any other.
Welcome to Cleveland, Jeffrey. The quick report from the room is that you've been, by audio, more riveting than some people who show up in person.
Oh, well, that's nice of you to say. Thank you.
The quick question is this. Do you believe there's a discernible difference in the goodwill and credibility or the regard in which the court is held since the Bush-Gore decision?
Not really. I think it was a very fortunate thing for the court that the decision in Bush v. Gore was in December, because the court was forced to get right back to work. If the decision in Bush v. Gore somehow had been in June, and they had had the opportunity to stew in their anger at each other all summer long when they weren't seeing each other, I think the animosity might have built up. But because they didn't, it contributed to the courts continuing to work together. And one thing that justices have in common is they all have a tremendous reverence for the institution. And as angry as the losing side was, they weren't inclined to burn down the place, metaphorically speaking. Also, as I said earlier in my remarks, the liberals who were most outraged about Bush v. Gore started winning shortly thereafter. So they weren't inclined to, trash the place. And when, they were winning in Lawrence v. Texas, they were winning in the Michigan affirmative action case, they were winning on all those death penalty cases. So, I think there was a moment after Bush v. Gore that the outrage was so great that there really was a possibility that the Supreme Court would fall in most folks' estimation. And I do think there was some damage to the institution. But because of that combination of circumstances, I don't think there was a big change after Bush v. Gore.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey. Today at the City Club of Cleveland Forum, we have been listening to CNN analyst and New Yorker staff writer Jeffrey Toobin. Jeffrey, thank you again for doing such a great job over the audio. We appreciate your attendance, ladies and gentlemen. This forum is now adjourned.